The choir in the sanctuary next door had just eased into silent night when my son raised his glass and said, bright enough for the fellowship hall to hear, "Save the speeches, Dad." "Do you have the papers?" Forks hovered. The furnace hummed like a steady heart. Brooke wore a smile you could rent for an open house. My palm found the manila envelope in my coat warm from my ribs. 20 years without a call, and here we were, steam off the turkey fogging the windows. Chief Ray from the volunteer fire department at the end of the table, my granddaughter passing rolls like she was born to it. I stood. Chairs whispered across the floor. Kyle's grin twitched. I said 2 words I'd waited to say. That's when the whole room leaned in. Rewind. The morning the story started, I was salting my porch steps against an Illinois sky the color of pewter. You could smell cold in it, iron and clean. I had a rural king flyer folded in my pocket and yesterday's chili waiting on the stove. My boots left little white halos where the rock salt fell. The phone in my shirt pocket buzzed like a trapped bee. "Dad heard you sold part of the farm. Let's talk." Sold is the word rumor uses when it can't be bothered with details. I hadn't sold. I'd signed a solar lease on 40 acres of quiet ground the corn borers loved more than I did. Modest checks paid quarterly, steady enough to patch a roof and stay ahead on heat. I'd still drive past the panels and remember where my wife set fence posts with a laugh and a swear. Around here, rumor adds zeros and subtracts nuance. By the time that text rattled into my old flip phone, I apparently had new money and a taste for boat shows. I knocked salt off my boots and went inside. The kettle complained in the way only kettles do. 20 years of holidays with my name missing from the group texts. 20 years of birthdays measured by what didn't arrive in the mailbox. The kitchen clock ticked in a way that said it would keep at it whether I joined or not. A second buzz. "We're hosting Christmas. Big family dinner. Come home." I set the phone down carefully beside the chili spoon. "Well, now," I said to the empty room, "look at the timing." Maybe I smiled. Maybe I didn't. I will say the kettle screamed itself out before I remembered to lift it. You want a fight scene for those 20 years. Folks do. They expect rain on a porch, a truck taillight disappearing, a slammed door rattling the windows. It was smaller than that. The year my wife died, he told me in the church doorway that I loved the shop more than I loved her. He didn't yell. He said it like he'd kept the sentence in a jar. I had lilies and bad coffee in my mouth and no answer worth saying. After that came asks I couldn't grant, a truck you could see from space that needed my cosign. Then, a condo brochure with glossy counters. I pulled his credit like a mechanic listening under a hood and told him, slow money beats fast trouble. He called it a verdict on his life. He asked me to sell the 40 along the creek so he could flip houses. I said his mama bent her back on that fence line. He laughed the short laugh a socket makes when it slips off a bolt. I wish I could tell you I handled the season like a saint. Truth, after you bury your wife, a bottle looks like an idea. I kept mine close for a winter, then found a basement room with folding chairs and burnt coffee and men who keep pennies in their pockets and promises in their mouths. I picked up an AA chip and learned to say my name before my story. When spring came, I put the bottle down and picked up a wrench. Oil changes and apologies both work better on schedule. Kyle kept the winter picture of me and taped it over the new one. Calls went to voicemail. A pink baby blanket my wife had finished the Christmas before she got sick came back in the mail with a typed note about boundaries. I put the blanket in a drawer and closed it gently. Time has a way of pulling a man forward, even if he digs his heels. I kept the shop warm as I could with a kerosene heater and steady work mowers, snowblowers, anything that spun and sighed. I learned the fellowship hall dishwasher's moods and how to fold tables without pinching fingers. The AA chip rode in my wallet like a saint's medallion someone slipped into a Baptist pocket. Nights were quiet enough to hear the house think. Last August, the Solar Boys came with clean boots and straight parts. They liked the angle of the 40 and the slope toward the sun. We talked under the maple. I asked what happens if a company dies and a man keeps living. They had answers that didn't treat me like loose change. We shook hands in a dust of soybean leaves. First check hit and I fixed shingles and bought a thermos that doesn't leak. I did not call a realtor. I did not order a golf cart. I bought one new pair of gloves and called it fancy. At the church kitchen the day of the texts, we lined tables with paper cloth and slid casseroles into warmers, a parade of foil hats with names in blue ink. Pastor Denise clapped me on the shoulder. "Hank, rumor says you're rolling in it." "If rolling means the furnace gets fed," I said, "I'm doing cartwheels." A quilting lady asked if my boy was coming home. I said I had a text that thought so. She smiled the way people do when they want a good ending and don't know the first act. I kept my hands in the dishwater and let the heat sting. The sun gave up early like it does in December. Back home, I sorted mail utility hardware circular, a glossy postcard about pre-need packages with a seagull that's never been to Illinois. I tossed that one. I looked out at the barn light over the east stall flickering when the wind pushed. I should fix that. I should also fix whatever is coming with a level head and plain words. Just before supper, I wrote back one line, "I can come to Christmas." The bubbles on the chili skinned over and popped in tiny sighs. I set 2 bowls just to see the look of it. The second bowl made the table look hopeful and slightly surprised. I ate slow, listening to the house. The porch light clicked on like it had faith in me. Somewhere down the road, a dog bargained with the wind. I washed dishes to the rhythm of a man who knows there's work he can do tonight and work that waits for daylight. Then I walked to the front room, looked at the tree with its lopsided angel, and told the empty chair across from mine, "If I go on my feet." I slept like a nail small useful, holding something the world leans on. In the morning, frost made lace on the truck windshield. I scraped it with a library card I never returned. On old Route 36, a plow threw a rooster tail of snow into the ditch. Somewhere a crossing bell counted a train. I let the engine idle and said the plan out loud. Show up kind. Keep the sentences short. Don't drink, don't loan, don't argue. Remember what the goal is: a roof over your head and a decent sleep after. Then I put the Rural King flyer back in the glove box, drove to Kroger for pie crusts, and because it costs almost nothing, bought 1 extra bag of rolls for the church. The bag thumped the seat like a small promise keeping time. I wish I could give you a neat headline for how a father and son go 20 years without a decent phone call. Neat headlines don't live where we lived. Ours started as a sentence said too simply in a church doorway and then kept growing roots. It was 2004. My wife had a laugh that could make a flat tire consider fixing itself, and then she didn't. After the service, the quilting ladies laid out ham buns and deviled eggs like they were stacking sandbags against sorrow. People hugged me with casserole pans between us. Kyle and I stood under the coat rack that always sheds 1 plastic hanger per funeral. He stared at the bulletin board, like it might answer questions, then said, "You loved the shop more than you loved Mom." Not a shout. Just the kind of sentence you practice when you're driving and finally let out where it can't be taken back. I had lilies and black coffee in my mouth and nothing wise to say. So the sentence hung there, and like February cold, it went into the bones. A month later, he came by with a color brochure for a truck you could see from a mile up. "All I need is a signature," he said. We sat at the kitchen table, where the varnish has a pale circle worn in from my wife's teapot. I told him what my father told me: cosign once, and you make 2 fools, 1 now, 1 later. He rolled his eyes. I pulled his credit like a mechanic listens to a knock. Same skill, different tools. "You can afford a smaller truck," I said, "or a bigger apology a year from now." He left with the brochure rolled tight in his fist like he was swearing an oath to cardboard. Then came a condo with glossy counters and a lobby ficus. He brought Brooke that time, new smile, quick questions, tidy purse. She talked about building equity and getting in while the market is friendly. I said houses are for living in, not for flipping like pancakes you don't intend to eat. She folded her hands, neat as a bank teller. Kyle watched me like a coach who's certain the ref is out to get him. When I said no again, he pushed his chair back slow, as if I'd betrayed a promise I didn't remember making. That summer we were on the porch watching swallows cut the evening into doable pieces. He said, "Sell the 40 along the creek." "It's just dirt, Dad." I said, "Your mother set fence posts there until the ground quit arguing. That dirt is paid for with her back." He laughed, a short socket slips off bolt laugh. Months after that, we talked less and less, and then we didn't. I wish I could tell you I handled grief like a gentleman farmer in a magazine. Truth is, after you bury your wife, a bottle starts looking like a tool. I kept mine handy for a winter. Then a neighbor gave me a time and an address, written on a church bulletin. I walked down into a basement with bad coffee metal chairs and men who carry pennies like anchors. We said our names and then our honesty. I picked up a white chip and then a bronze one, and I learned to change the oil in my day before it burned. In spring, I put the bottle down and picked up a wrench. Oil changes and apologies both work better on schedule. Kyle didn't see the basement room. He kept the winter picture and taped it over everything that came after. I called. He let the phone ring neat as a metronome. First birthday, I mailed him a card and a note that didn't ask for anything. The envelope came back with a yellow label like a teacher's scold, "Return to sender." When Maddie was born, I sent a pink blanket my wife had finished the Christmas before she got sick. Brooke mailed it back with a typed note typed about boundaries. I put the blanket in a drawer with my good screwdriver and closed it easy. There were Facebook things. I didn't see them live. Folks printed screenshots and set them on my workbench like leftovers. One read "Old man still hoarding dirt with a laughing face that looks like a kidney bean." I said thank you and slid the paper under the phone book. The world is full of ways to talk and short on things worth saying. Politics came in like weather. In '08, I muttered at the TV. In '16, I muttered again. He sent me a text that said, "You don't get it." I thumbed, "I get breaks and interest. That's plenty." He sent a thumbs down. It felt like a check mark in the wrong box. In 2020, when the world measured itself with tape and fear, I called to ask if they needed paper towels or a wave from the driveway. He texted, "We're fine. Don't call." I saved it anyway, as if saving could turn it into something else. Meanwhile, time did what it does to men who show up. I kept the shop warm enough with a kerosene heater parked like a small sun, changed belts, sharpened blades, put carburetors back together with a patience I didn't have at 30. I learned the dishwasher at the fellowship hall has the temperament of a retired train and the stamina to match. The AA chip rode in my wallet like a lucky washer you keep because it fits something you'll need to fix someday. Sundays I poured coffee. Wednesdays I folded tables without pinching fingers. I wasn't holy, but I was useful. Last August, the Solar Fellows came with clipboards and sensible boots. They liked the angle and the drainage on that 40. We signed a lease that reads like plain arithmetic. When somebody says sold, I say lease. There's a difference you can live in. The first check went into shingles and heat, and for dessert, I bought a thermos that doesn't leak. I did not call a realtor. I did not buy a toy. I bought one pair of gloves and let the good feeling ride shotgun. Then the texts hit, "Heard you sold and we're hosting Christmas." You would think the sound in my chest was angels. It was a wrench slipping and barking a knuckle. I said yes anyway, because showing up is a muscle, and at my age, if you don't use a muscle, some salesman will want to use it for you. If you're wondering about Brooke, the years made her glossy in a way that sells candles and condos. She learned to smile in paragraphs. Kyle learned to make any plan sound like it was your idea. Their strengths together could move furniture you weren't done sitting on. I don't say that to be mean. I say it because truth wears better when it fits. Maddie was the bright thread in that branch of the family. I saw her at the county fair when I went for a lemonade and a minute of a tractor pull. She had a lamb with a stubborn glint and boots that squeaked honesty. We made eye contact across a row of kettle corn salt, and she gave me a half wave that said, "Maybe later." I nodded like an old man nods at a flag. So when Christmas came calling, I took a legal pad from my drawer and made 2 short lists. On one, I wrote, "Show up kind." Keep sentences short, don't drink, don't loan, don't argue. On the second, I wrote, "Ask someone smart." The next morning, I drove past the post office and turned left at the brick building with a brass plate Ortega and Finch. I'd fixed Maria Ortega's mower for the price of a peach pie last summer. The bell over her door sounds like a good decision. She has a way of saying things that makes you believe plain English still works. And in a world where people ask you for your PIN, just in case, that's a miracle worth scheduling. By the time I pushed back out onto Main, I had paper that could carry weight without bending, and a plan for what to read if somebody asked for the papers between turkey and toasts. 2 words on a sticky note boxed in yellow sat at the top of the stack like a small flag with a lot behind it. I took all that home and set it on the table next to my reading glasses. The house ticked. The furnace breathed. I felt like a man who'd taken off a heavy coat and remembered his shoulders were under there the whole time. Maria Ortega's bell made that good civilized clink when I opened her door, the kind that says you're about to do something adult, and nobody's going to upsell you a candle. Her office on Main had a skinny Christmas garland drooping in the window, a radiator hissing like a cat that's decided to be friendly anyway, and the smell of paper and plain work. She waved me in with a legal pad readers riding her hair like a second set of eyebrows. "Hank," she said, "let's build you a fence you can open from the right side." I brought my reading glasses, I said, patting my shirt pocket. "They'll do the fighting." "Good," she said. "I'll give them clean words to swing." We sat at a table big enough for bad news and good coffee. Maria drew 3 boxes on her pad like she was dealing a simple hand. "First box," she said, tapping the left one. "Life estate deed. In plain English, you keep your home for the rest of your life. No one sells it, refinances it, or moves you out without your say-so. When you pass the deed, moves to who you name cleanly." "English I can live in," I said. "Second box, tap on the middle, revocable living trust. Picture a toolbox that holds your things. While you're healthy, you hold the handle. If you get sick, your instructions are already in there, no line at probate. When you die, it hands things out the way you told it to." "And if I change my mind?" "You change the instructions. Revocable means we use pencil until it's time for ink." She tapped the third box. "No contest clause. If someone challenges your plan just to shake you down, they get." She wrote $1 words and circled it this. I laughed once. "Dollar menu justice?" "Courts respect clarity," she said. "We're not trying to punish grief, we're preventing tantrums." We filled the toolbox. I told her Maddie comes first. Maria wrote Maddie 60% without asking for a speech. I said I wanted money to do quiet good, 30% to a Whitaker FFA fieldwork scholarship at the high school, 10% to the volunteer fire department that's been first on more bad days than any preacher. She asked for proper names, addresses, tax IDs. Her typing sounded like a waltz steady neat, not a single flourish nobody asked for. I pulled out the single page the solar outfit had left that explains the payments, like arithmetic, not magic. "Lease income goes into the toolbox," she said. "We'll keep a plain language summary on top for you. English, not Latin." "Church uses Greek," I said. "Then we'll keep it in Greek and English," she said. "Mostly English." We moved to powers of attorney. She slid 2 marked drafts across medical and financial. You choose the person. You choose what they can do. I make the papers behave. Do not sign anything someone printed off Google and waves at you over pie. If family wants to help, they can wait while you call me. "My son's wife likes paper," I said. "And I like phones," she said. "Call me." I gave her Pastor Denise's number. Trusted soul. "Make her your trusted contact at the bank," Maria said. "Not a signer, not an owner. Just a person the bank can call if your account starts acting like it took up skydiving." "I'll bring donuts to Mr. Brooks and ask real nice," I said. "Good, and open a 529 for Maddie." "Call it Fence Row," I said. "She'll get the joke later." We signed where we needed to. The pen clicked like a cricket on payday. When we were finished, Maria stacked a clean manila envelope with copies sealed each flap with a glue that tasted like first grade and stuck a yellow sticky note on top. She wrote 2 words in tidy capitals and boxed them in with a thick square life estate. "Put this where you can grab it," she said. "If anyone asks for papers, in a tone you read 1 sentence from the deed and 1 from the trust summary. English only. Your roof, the dollar. Then you go back to your pie." "Short sentences," I said. "Short and true," she said. "Truth wears better." "Maria," I asked, "what do I say if they slide something across a table on Christmas?" "You say, 'I don't sign on holy days, I sign in offices.' Then you call me Monday." I tucked that line in my pocket like a spare fuse. The bell tinked me back onto Main. Snow was doing that slow sift that makes footprints full of opinions. I set the envelope on the bench seat of the Ford and drove 2 blocks to Prairie State Bank, where carpet remembers rain and pens are on chains because time taught them manners. Morning. Hank, Mr. Brooks said, mustache from the Carter years, voice from a porch swing. "You look like a man with both hands on the wheel." "Trying to keep it between the lines," I said, setting the envelope on my knees like a newborn. "We added Pastor Denise as trusted contact. He toggled a flag so withdrawals past a sensible amount pinged him and me both. He scrolled, frowned at a little digital breadcrumb. We had a Phoenix login try to peek last week. Already blocked." "Bless your broom," I said. He keyed a note, "Do not accept third-party POA without attorney Ortega's verification." Then he slid over the 5 and 29 forms. I wrote Madison Whittaker, careful as if spelling paid interest. Account nickname he asked. Fence row, I said. He grinned. Solid post spacing. Back at the house, I set the envelope next to my reading glasses and boiled water for coffee because steam looks like thinking. I took out Maria's one-page summary and read it out loud the way a man reads the owner's manual of a machine that can hurt you if you don't respect it. I keep my home for the rest of my life. No sale or move without my say-so. If you contest this plan, you receive $1. The sentences felt like planks you could cross a creek on. No poetry, good balance. In the afternoon, I went to the shop and told the drill press my lines. I keep my roof, I said. The drill press didn't argue. Maddie comes first. The ladder by the window nodded in a draft. Contest it, and you get $1. The radio coughed up a polka at the exact right time to make me smile. I took that as permission to soften my voice when I needed hard words. By supper, the snow quit. I ate eggs and toast because it's hard to mess up and because a man should keep some wins on the plate. After dishes, I slid the envelope into my coat's inner pocket, close enough to feel the square through cloth. I walked to the front room, breathed with the tree a minute, and practiced what Maria had called lowering my voice. It felt like putting a heavy box down without dropping it. The phone buzzed. Unknown number then, Brooke's name with a winking sun. A link to a UPS store notary. Super easy, we can knock it out before dinner. I let the screen go dark. Then I typed back, "My attorney reviews anything with my name on it. I don't sign at UPS." She replied with a thumbs up that managed to look like a pat on the head. I didn't bite. I wrote a line on my yellow pad, "Say it once, stop." Then I looked at the sticky note on the envelope at those 2 words boxed in yellow like a small flag with a lot of country behind it. I said them once under my breath, like grace. Before bed, I laid out a clean shirt and rubbed my boots with the same stuff I use on old belts. Starch is courage you can wear. I set the envelope on the chair by the door, so I'd have to pick it up to leave like a promise with a handle. The house made its nighttime music tick here, sigh there, and I answered with my own short sentences. Lower voice, roof stays, the dollar stands. Then I turned out the light and slept the way a nail sleeps small, useful holding. They came 2 days early with a tin of cookies and the kind of smiles you polish in a mirror. The driveway wore a crust of old snow. Their SUV made it crackle like hard candy. I was fixing a weak strand of lights on the porch when Kyle called Dad. The second syllable pitched high like it could climb 20 years in a breath. Brooke followed him in on a breeze of perfume that reminded me of bank carpet. "Pecan sandies," she said, showing the tin. "Mom's recipe. We thought we'd help you get this place festive." "Festive and I are acquaintances," I said, and held the door. Inside, they spread themselves around my kitchen the way catalogs spread themselves around mailboxes. Brooke shook out a plaid runner and straightened candles that weren't crooked. Kyle popped the cookie tin and ate 2 like he was clocking in. He wandered by my mail casual, as a cat crossing a table he's not supposed to be on. "Property tax again," he said, reading the return address he hadn't paid for. "County's a hungry beast." "It purrs when you pay on time," I said. Brooke opened her purse, which was organized like a good sermon. "While we're here," she said, "we can knock out a few adulting things. Holidays get hectic." She handed me a stack of printouts crowned with clip art snowmen because the internet believes you should smile while signing your life away. Durable power of attorney sat on top in letters that liked their job too much. "All standard," she said. "We can swing by UPS, they notarize, or the bank so quick. That way if anything comes up, we can act for you." Maria Ortega drafted my medical and financial papers. I said, like setting a cooler brick on a stack. "We can use those if needed." Brooke's smile held the way good paint holds in a windstorm. "Oh, of course. These are just in case." "In case barges through the door if you leave it cracked," I said, and took a cookie. It broke into sweet sand truth in the name at least. Kyle leaned a hip on the counter. "Totally separate topic, Dad. There's a ground floor thing moving. Crypto's steadying, but this is better. We'd only need a small stake to get traction." "Seeds go in the ground and grow food," I said. "I'm set on ground." He laughed like a socket slipping and flipped through my wall calendar. "What's your pin again?" "If you ever need me to grab cash or move something when you're at church." "Maria says not to hand out pins with cookies," I said, "and the bank says it with bigger words." "Dad," he said, soft complaint like I'd lost the operation manual to my own wallet. My memory does its job, I said. When it doesn't, I bring a list. He looked at my coat on the chair as if the pocket could tell him a story. I buttoned the thought away. Brooke tapped the POA stack. Just a notary stamp and we'll be good. We can get signatures before dinner and be out the door in 10. I don't sign on holy days, I said, my voice low enough you had to lean in. I sign in offices. She blinked, then arranged her face back into warmth. Of course. We strung lights. Brooke oopsed with her phone out and snapped a photo of my check register, open on the table. I slid it shut with 2 fingers and put it in the drawer that keeps rubber bands and warranties for appliances nobody stocks parts for. Have you thought about assisted living? Brooke asked, voice bright as a brochure. Sunset Pines has a pie social every Thursday and a shuttle to Target. I see a lot of pie without moving, I said, and my roof and I have an understanding. I hold it up. It keeps me dry. She set her hand on the POA stack like it was a small pet. No pressure. We can circle back. Circle tight, I said. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Prairie State Bank unrecognized login attempt blocked Phoenix AZ2. 14 p.m. Mr. Brooks earns his donuts. I thumbed. Not me, slid the phone away and said, how about the angel for the top? On cue, the back door burst with a whoosh of honest winter. Grandpa Mattie's cheeks were the kind of red you can't buy. She smelled like hay and peppermint gum. She set a tote by the tree and gave me a hug that made the lights look less tired. Got time to help an old man commit decoration? I asked. Always, she said, and then tugged my sleeve. Can you look at my lamb halter? It keeps slipping. Mom says maybe the lamb is broken, which it isn't. We stepped into the mudroom. The rope was cheerful red, rough enough to make sense. I showed her a stop knot that makes pressure go where it does some good. We looped it around the coat hook and practiced. Mom wants me to ask you for money for driver's ed, she said to the rope. She says it's good practice asking people for things. She made a face. I hate it. I'll do you better, I said. I'll teach you what the brake is for on ice, and when you're steady, I'll pay the instructor to tell you I was right. She laughed through her nose. Deal. She squinted at the knot. Mom says you're stubborn. I prefer built to code, I said. We went back to the kitchen. Brooke had the cookies centered like a magazine spread. Kyle was scrolling his phone. Realtor says spring is perfect for a quick walkthrough, Brooke said, as if I'd asked. No pressure, just to get a number. Maybe the 27th. We're in town till then. Zillow throws numbers for free, I said. So do neighbors if you forget your blinds. She smiled a shade thinner. Kyle lifted his phone and the little shutter clicked. Started a family folder, he said. Keeps things organized. My things mind me fine under my roof, I said. The oven beeped like a polite suggestion. I slid in a pie. The heat made the kitchen smell like nutmeg and good decisions. The bank pinged again, this time a friendly note about their elder fraud tips. I texted Mr. Brooks a thank you and typed, if a couple comes looking for a fast stamp, offer your slow coffee. He sent back a coffee emoji and a thumbs up that looked like a handshake. We ran an extension cord under the rug and argued with a plug that had opinions. The angel refused to sit straight until Maddie told it. 2 clicks to the right and it listened. Christmas dinner, Kyle said, clapping his hands like he'd wrangled a board meeting. We'll host here. Dad, you can sit by the window, good light for photos, and once we've eaten, we can wrap up. You know, documents. Smooth. Church hall has better light, I said. More plates, better dishwasher. I told Pastor Denise I'd bring pie and elbow grease. He opened his mouth for a counter, found none polite enough for church, and shut it. Brooke recovered first. Church is lovely, she said, rearranging a centerpiece that hadn't asked for rearranging. They left the cookies in a ribbon that shed glitter like cheap snow. After the door breathed them out, the house relaxed into its own voice. I put the DIY POA stack in the drawer with rubber bands and warranties where good intentions go to nap. Then, I opened my pocket notebook and wrote Brooke DIY POA UPS link 27th walkthrough. Kyle Pin ask check photo family folder. 2:14 p.m. bank ping, Phoenix blocked. I underlined call Maria if pressured and drew a small square next to Monday office because a man thinks better when he knows what morning he plans to show up and where. The next day I stopped by the church to check the dishwasher. It hit its stride like a retired freight train, then swung past Prairie State Bank with a box of donuts. Mr. Brooks pretended to argue over the Boston cream and lost with grace. We set a note together, private room if customer appears pressured. It felt like putting good hinges on a door you don't want slammed. Back home, I wrote 2 checks and slid them into separate envelopes: Volunteer Firefighters Association and Whitaker FFA Fieldwork Scholarship seed, and a third with Maddie on the front inside it, the 529 details, and a scribble books before boots. I tucked the 3 into my coat's inner pocket and patted them once like you do when you're counting children in a parking lot. By late afternoon, Brooke texted a smiley son and quick UPS noter before dinner. I replied, "My attorney reviews anything with my name on it. I don't sign at UPS." A single emoji came back. It read like a pat on a dog you don't own. Evening dropped early as December does. I ran a cloth over the table the way a man steals himself without looking like he is. Then, I took the manila envelope from the chair back and slipped it deeper into the coat close enough that I could feel the square-through cloth. The sticky note on top 2 words boxed in yellow brushed my knuckle. I said them once under my breath, just to remind my mouth how they fit. Tomorrow, I told the quiet house we do this in company. Short sentences, lower voice. Read the line about the roof. Read the line about the dollar. Hand the checks where hands can see them. Then eat pie, like food is for living. The furnace answered with a steady hum that sounded like agreement. Morning came in clean and cold, the kind that makes the sky look scrubbed. I took coffee black and hot enough to remind my mouth it was alive, then rolled out crusts while the radio mumbled farm reports and carols. The kitchen smelled like nutmeg and the inside of a good memory. I set 2 pumpkin pies to cool on the rack, then a chess pie my wife swore by when company showed without warning. Steam lifted like a blessing you don't have to believe in to enjoy. I laid my coat on the chair and pressed a palm to the inside pocket, the square of the manila riding there like a steady coin. I checked the other pocket 3 envelopes: Volunteer Firefighters Association, Whitaker FFA Fieldwork Scholarship seed, and one with Maddie written in my neatest print. On the Maddie card, I'd added 1 line I wanted my hand to remember: books before boots. I set the envelopes back where they belonged and breathed easier for it. Before noon, I called Pastor Denise. "We still good for the fellowship hall?" I asked. "Good and better," she said. "Folks signed up for more casseroles than a Methodist funeral. We'll leave the microphone off and the coffee on. Want me to put your name on a pie table card?" "Just write pie," I said. "If it's good, nobody asks who. If it's bad, they won't look for me." I drove over with the pie's tires crunching old snow into new. The hall's fluorescent lights hummed awake. Denise met me at the kitchen door with a stack of paper cloths and that look pastors have when a plan has landed on its feet. "We'll do 2 buffet lines," she said, marking with her hand. "Leave a path down the middle. Chief Ray says he'll anchor the ham." The dishwasher coughed into motion and then settled into honest work. I wiped steam off my glasses and ran a cycle just to hear it take the load. It thumped in a way that promised to keep its temper. I taped pies on the counter with a Sharpie and a piece of blue tape, then cut rolls open and fluffed them like I was trying to make bread look like more than it was. Chief Ray Dillon came in carrying a roasting pan with both hands and a grin that had grease under its nails. "Brought the good ham," he said. "If any stove misbehaves, we'll call it training." "Got something for training," I said, touching the inside pocket where his check waited. He didn't see the tap, but he felt the intent. He leaned a hip against the counter. "We had a hose split last week like a cheap zipper. You know what beats prayer in a kitchen fire pressure? Prayer's good, pressure's faster." "Why not both?" I said. "I aim to help with the fast part." He nodded once, men's language for grateful without making a picture of it. "Appreciate you, Whitaker." I asked him to keep it quiet till after dessert. "Easier to swallow good news with sugar," I said. He laughed like a man who's learned that truth tastes better wrapped. Back in my truck, my phone buzzed with a text from Kyle. "We'll swing by at 3:30, ride over together." "Easier," he wrote. "I'll meet you there at 4, I typed. He sent back a single period. That tiny dot looked like a plan trying to put itself in charge and not getting hired. I stopped by Prairie State Bank with a carton of donuts and an extra cup holder, because you never know what steering a day will require. Mr. Brooks took a maple long john with reverence and said, "We'll be there tonight. Wife sings." I carry and nod. "You'll see some paper theater," I said. "We've got front row seats to sincerity," he answered. He tapped his keyboard, then said, "Our note is set. If anyone looks pressured, we offer a private room and slow coffee." "Bless your slow," I said. I'm leasing that phrase. At home, I ironed a denim shirt because starch is courage you can wear. I rubbed a thin coat of oil into my boots. They drank like thirsty friends. I shaved slow the old way, because a sharp blade makes a man honest with himself. I placed my reading glasses in their case and set it next to the manila on the chair, two old allies ready to work. On a yellow pad, I wrote the 4 lines Maria gave me: bold, I keep my home for life. No move or sail without my say-so. If you contest this, you get $1. I don't sign on holy days, I sign in offices. I folded the pad closed not because I'd forget, but because a closed pad keeps other people from writing on your page. At 2, Brooke texted a sunshine and quick UPS noter before dinner. I let the bubble sit there like a fly on the window, then replied, Monday, Maria's office. The bubble popped. No reply is a reply. I carried the pies out to the truck, set them in the passenger footwell where a seatbelt could pretend to help. The air outside had sharpened. You could hear sound travel clean kids laughing a block over a beagle making treaties with a mailman wind argument around the gutter nails I've meant to set again. I locked the door out of habit and told the house, hold the fort, which is silly and necessary. The hall was already filling when I returned, coats draped chairs like faithful dogs. Someone had plunked a small pine on the piano, and the 3rd-grade paper snowflakes made the fluorescent light look kinder. I put the pies in place and slid a knife under each with a small ceremony like notarizing crust. I shook hands till my arm remembered the motion, then stepped back and watched the room become itself, folks helping folks, joking, folks pretending not to glance at the door for people they hoped would show. Denise came over with name tags. Want one, she asked. I've had this face long enough, I said. If they don't know me by it, a sticker won't help. She laughed and stuck her own tag to the coffee urn. Hello, I'm still pouring. I told her that was good theology. I found a seat near the window where I could see the parking lot without turning my head. The manila pressed warm against my ribs. I took it out, once checked the sticky note Life Estate, boxed in yellow like a small flag waving over a solid hill, and slid it back. I practiced my sentences under my breath the way a man checks his tools before crawling under a truck. Short. True. Once. Need anything else? Chief Ray asked, passing with the stack of plates. Just your good timing, I said. He grinned. We're in the business. Maddie darted in from the sanctuary, cheeks bright. Grandpa, I saved you a seat, she said, meaning she'd placed a napkin and knife like claim staking. She looked at my coat pocket the way a ranch hand looks at a coiled rope, one tool, several futures. Halters held, she added, proud and nonchalant. Good knots don't brag, I said. They just do their job. By 3:45, the fellowship hall had that soft roar of togetherness you only get when people who share a zip code and a certain kind of weather decide to feed each other. The piano found a key. The choir in the sanctuary warmed vowels for silent night. I felt calm arrive like a dog that finds its spot and lies down. The plan wasn't complicated. It didn't need to be. I'd read one sentence from the deed, one from the trust summary. I'd hand the checks to Chief Ray and Pastor Denise where eyes could see and hearts could unclench. I'd say 2 words that fit in a pocket and hold a house. Then I'd sit down and eat pie like food was made for living. At 3:58, a gust of cold and retail cheer came through the door. Kyle and Brooks swept in like a catalog had gotten loose. Kyle's blazer had opinions. Brooks' necklace said Christmas without needing a calendar. Their smiles were the kind you paste on before stepping in front of a room. Dad, Kyle called, voice bright enough to find its own reflection in the windows. He hugged me with elbows. Brooke kissed the air near my cheek like friendliness was contagious, and she had her shots. Place looks great, he told Denise with a nod that assumed her approval. It looks like home, she said, pouring coffee. We filled plates. Steam rose off ham and casseroles like the room was blessing itself. Mr. Brooks gave me a nod from the wall sweater, festive eyes alert the way a banker's eyes can be, while his hands hold a styrofoam cup. Maddie slid a basket of rolls down the line with the competence of a person twice her age. I took one and thought of fence lines and girls who show up early to feed. We sat. I let the room settle around me, let folks find their conversation. The envelope rode against me, steady, quiet enough. I felt like a man with the right wrench in his hand and the right bolt in front of him, not because I wanted to tighten anything to breaking, but because things were about to hold. After dinner, Kyle said, lifting his glass and finding a volume, "We'll just wrap up some documents." Smooth. He flashed a smile, part host, part closer. I met it with the kind you use on a wary dog, calm, not afraid. The choir's first notes slipped under the door and laid themselves on the room like snow. I took a breath deep enough to feel it all the way to my boots. Then I put my hand on the envelope and sat easier. The next part would come in its own time. My job was to keep the sentences short and the voice low and let the room do the rest. Kyle waited for the pie knives to come out and the coffee to start making its little hiss. He raised his glass like a man lighting a sign and said, bright enough for the fellowship hall to hear, "Save the speeches, Dad." "Do you have the papers?" Forks paused. The choir in the sanctuary leaned into its verse like a steady hand on a shoulder. I felt the square of the manila envelope against my ribs, the calm weight of a tool that fits. I stood. At my age, standing buys you an extra inch of backbone. Chairs whispered across linoleum. Brooke smiled the kind of smile you rent for an open house and turned it up one click. Kyle held his glass midair as if he could keep time still. "Friends, I said low so people leaned in. I've got what I need." I set the envelope by the pies and opened it with a thumb on the flap. Old glue gave like a polite memory. On top was the single page Maria had typed in English for minds that like roofs more than Latin. I slid my reading glasses down and held the line where any soul could see it, including the ones hoping verbs might bend. "This is from the deed," I said, "plain as we can make it. I read I keep my home for the rest of my life. No one can sell it or move me out without my say-so." Sound changed. Not loud, truer. Somebody's chair thought about squeaking and decided against it. The heater kept its bargain. I put the deed down like a recipe card I'd finished with and lifted the trust summary. "And this," I said, "is from the trust. I read if you contest this plan, you receive $1. I let the sentence stand by itself and do its job. Brooke's fork hovered halfway to her mouth, a little flag that didn't know which way to face. Mr. Brooks, in a sweater with snowmen on it, shifted his stance the way a man does when he could move but won't unless needed. Pastor Denise folded her hands like bread before it rises. Chief Ray scratched his jaw and gave me a nod too small for a photograph. I breathed once and said the two words I'd carried around all week, 2 words that fit in a pocket and keep a house standing. Life estate. Not a shout, a key turning. "That's fine, Dad," Kyle said, his smile trying to catch up with the situation. "And the rest?" I brought my own pen, I said, small smile to show my teeth were friendly. "And it stays in this pocket till Monday in an office with Maria watching. I don't sign on holy days. I sign in offices." A murmur ran around the tables, the satisfied sound people make when a sentence lands with its boots on. I set both pages down beside the pies as if they were just recipes, and maybe they were the kind that serve a roof and a future. I looked toward the kitchen pass-through where Chief Ray was already standing like a man who expects to be useful. "Chief," I said, lifting a second envelope, "I've got something for pressure." I handed him the check Volunteer Firefighters Association and kept my voice where a room respects it, for hoses that don't behave like noodles. He took it with both hands the way people take babies and folded flags. His mouth made an O without asking permission. "We'll use it loud," he said, which is firefighter for amen. I turned to Pastor Denise, and for the school I said the first seed for the Whitaker FFA Fieldwork Scholarship. I didn't make a speech. I just handed the check where people could see it go to work. Eunice from quilting dabbed her eye with a napkin like she was testing its ply for science. Someone near the piano lost track of a chord and found it again. Maddie's hand found my sleeve and squeezed once a signal I felt in my bones. Kyle set his glass down harder than glass likes. "So that's it," he said, voice thin where it used to be slick. "Maddie gets the money and the town gets to clap. You cut me out." I cut out noise. I said, "Same tone you used to tell a fence post where the hole goes. There's room for you. There's always room. It just doesn't come with a line item." Brooke blinked like a person coming out of bright lights. "We were only trying to help Hank." "I like help," I said. "I brought some with me in this envelope. It holds my roof up without moving the furniture under me." A laugh started near the coffee urn kind, not cruel and spread like heat. Mr. Brooks tipped an imaginary cap. His mustache did the rest. Chief Ray tucked the check into his shirt pocket like good news belongs near a heart. Denise slid the scholarship check under the edge of the piano pine and said, "We'll make this stretch farther than elastic." Pie I offered the room because sugar is a life preserver, and I had a stack. The laugh finished its trip around the tables and settled into clinking plates. I cut neat wedges past them down the line and let people talk about crust while the larger thing did its slow work. Kyle stayed planted, anger running through its small set of options. "We'll talk later," he said, and meant right now. "Monday," I said, and the word landed like a coat on a chair. "Maria's office. We'll bring pens that mind their ink." He tried another angle. "You don't have to read this stuff out loud, Dad." "I wanted to," I said. "I wanted the room to know why I can relax enough to eat pie." I turned to Maddie. "Kid, would you take the rolls down to the chief's table? He's earned seconds." She grinned and went boots whispering across the floor. Brooke set her napkin down in a square, as if she could fold the last 5 minutes into it and tuck it away. I passed a slice to Mr. Brooks. He said that deed sentence ought to be on a billboard, and then added, "but it wouldn't fit." "Short sentences," I said. "They lift better." At the end of our table, a couple from across Route 36 traded looks the way people do when they realize their own kitchen needs a conversation. You can tell when words have been given to a room that needed them. They get picked up and tried on like jackets. Kyle scraped his chair back half an inch, then forward again. "You blindsided me," he said. "I gave you a calendar," I said. "It says Monday on it. You're welcome to bring a pen and a letter." His mouth opened, then closed. Brooke's eyes went to the door and stayed there. The choir in the sanctuary found the last verse of Silent Night, and for a breath the whole place hummed with it, a sound older than our argument, and steadier. I gathered the papers and slid them back into the envelope. The sticky note on top, "Life Estate," boxed in yellow, brushed my thumb. I put the envelope back in my coat and buttoned the pocket like a man finishing a simple job right. We ate in a way people eat when the hard part is honest and the rest is gravy. The dishwasher roared to life, and the room answered with jokes about it waking Lazarus. I refilled coffee. Denise asked if I'd bless the scholarship publicly on Sunday. I said a sentence that did the job without borrowing God for things men can handle. When conversation drifted to weather, and whether the high school band would remember all the notes for Hark, I stood again just long enough to say one more line to the room. "I keep my home," I said, "and I keep my door open. Just not for schemes." It wasn't a speech. It was a fence line with a gate that swings the direction I choose. Kyle stared at his plate like it might turn into a plan. Brooke tucked her smile back in its case. Maddie leaned into my side, warm and solid, a reminder that some things don't need paper to be true. By the time the last plate clinked into the bus tub, the room had decided what story it would take home. Not a brawl, not a spectacle, just a man reading 2 clear sentences, setting out 2 checks and sitting down to pie. Truth doesn't always wear boots. Sometimes it wears reading glasses and a clean shirt and lets the heat do the talking. I helped carry trays to the kitchen. The dishwasher grabbed them with gusto and slammed its door like a period at the end of a long, true line. Outside the windows, the sky held a late winter blue that makes you think about morning even before night starts. I felt the room breathe. I did too. Chairs started stacking in neat squeaking towers. People did that small town thing where they take twice as long to leave because leaving means the spirit of the evening might cool too fast. I wiped my knife on a napkin and watched the dishwasher roar like a retired freight train doing one last good run. Kyle stood close enough to be private and far enough to hope an audience might grow around us if he needed one. "Dad," he tried quieter, the bright knocked out of the word, "we should talk." "We will," I said. "Monday. Maria's office. Pens, not pie." He looked around the room as if it might vote. It didn't. Brooke folded her napkin into a smaller square, then smaller again, like she could hide the last half hour inside it. "Listen," I said, and I kept my voice where folks lean in instead of bracing. "There's a family grant, $1,000. It's yours when you hand me 2 things, a letter that says you're sorry for 20 years of quiet and means it, and proof you finished 3 sessions with the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. Bring me the certificate. I'll write the check in an office with a pen that minds its ink." His mouth opened on a no that didn't find company. Brooke stared at the floor like the pattern had answers. Maddie paused at the end of the table with the roll basket and listened with the frankness only 15 can carry. "That's insulting," Kyle said, but he said it like a man standing near his own echo. "It's an offer," I said, "a gate, not a wall." He laughed short and low. "You think 3 meetings and a letter fix 20 years? No," I said, But they fix the next 3 weeks. The rest is long work. I'm offering a start you can prove you made." He had another argument perched, then let it fly off. Whatever he said, which is the word people use when they mean the opposite. Beside us, Chief Ray tucked his check deeper in his shirt pocket like good news belongs near a heart. He clapped Kyle's shoulder once, not hard, not soft, and moved on. Mr. Brooks shook my hand and said, "You held the room without raising your voice. That holds up in court and in kitchens." Pastor Denise slid the scholarship check into an envelope that had already learned to be useful and pressed my elbow. "You kept it kind, Hank." "Kind wears longer than loud," I said. Brooke found her smile the smaller one she uses when there's no brochure in sight. "We'll see you Monday," she said, and meant it or wanted to be heard meaning it. Kyle nodded. It looked like a habit remembering itself. Folks drifted to the door. The choir in the sanctuary put away Silent Night like you put away a dish you use once a year and wash with both hands. Eunice from quilting hugged me with the soft force of a woman who's held sleeping babies in farmers' arms. "That one line, Hank," she said, "about the roof, that'll preach." "I'm more of a read and sit down man," I said. "Good sermon title," she said, and laughed herself into her coat. Maddie came back with a damp washcloth and wiped a ring off the table like she'd been doing it every Sunday of her life. "Grandpa," she said, voice steady, "Mom said we'll talk later. I told her you said Monday." "Smart kid," I said. "You were calm," she said. "I had good words," I answered. "They did the lifting." We carried trays to the kitchen. The dishwasher took them with gusto and slammed its door like a period. Outside, the parking lot glittered with salt and a dust of clean snow. I shrugged on my coat and felt the manila envelope land against my ribs, square friendly done with its job for the night. At the door, Chief Ray waved the check like it was something you should only show to the sky. "We'll call the hose vendor on Tuesday," he said. "We'll say a church kitchen made us do it." "Tell them a tired farmer helped," I said. Same thing, he grinned. Brooks brushed past with his wife on his arm. "You know, he said some men read fine print to feel big. You read plain print and looked taller for it." "Glasses help," I said. "They do," he said, tapping his own. Denise locked the hall and jingled keys like sleigh bells that meant business. "You coming Sunday?" she asked. "I'll be where the coffee is," I said. "Coffee will be where you are," she said. And that's the kind of theology I trust. Kyle and Brooke had already gone. Their SUV taillights traced the edge of town, then disappeared into the plain dark that gets old fast if you don't learn to like it. Maddie bumped my arm with her shoulder. "Come see the halter," she said. It held. We stepped into the little side room, where the kids' coats hang low like strong vines. She looped the rope around a mop handle and pulled. The knot cinched where it should and loosened where it must. "Pressure goes here," she said, repeating me back to me. "Not there." "Exactly," I said. "Same with life." Back home, the house met me with its easy language tick sigh, the heater's patient promise. I hung my coat on the chair and set the envelope on the table next to my reading glasses case. Beside them, I placed the yellow pad with the 4 lines and added a 5th with a dull pencil "Doors open for you, son, not for schemes." I made tea because coffee had done its time. Steam curled up like a story that doesn't need to end with a bang. I wrote NFCC on an index card and tucked it where Kyle couldn't miss it. Monday, I wrote Books Before Boots on a sticky note and pressed it into the flap of Maddie's envelope, which was already gone where it needed to be. I walked the house the way I do when I'm counting things that matter. Roof walls, tools in their places, a table that's held elbows and pies and papers, a chair that has learned the shape of me. The phone buzzed, an email from Kyle, not long, not eloquent. "I'll see you Monday. I'll bring the letter. No $signs, no links, no instructions. Just those lines." I didn't answer right then. Not answering can be its own kind of yes. I turned off the kitchen light. In the front room, the tree gave a last stubborn glow. I thought about my wife, her fence posts, and her laugh, the way she'd say measure once, swear twice, and then get the thing through the door anyway. I thought about the 40 acres that now wear sunlight like a coat, about the check in Chief Ray's pocket, about boys who grow into men who learn to lower their voices and still be heard. If this story put a hand on your shoulder, friend, take a breath with me. Think about the roofs you keep, the gates you choose to swing, the words you can say once and let stand. Share this with someone who needs a small, sturdy line to lean on. And if you want more plain-spoken tales about dignity that doesn't need a microphone, subscribe. I'll keep the coffee hot and the sentences short.